Hello, and welcome to round 4 of the Charlotte Fall Open 2025. My name's Joe. I'm watching Emily Plays Chess, and it is bright and early this Sunday morning. Hope you're all having a great weekend. Welcome in. Looks like our opponent is not there yet, but Emily has started her clock, and she has made her first move, which is e4. Best by test. Yeah, I'm so early. What's up, Almany? Looks like our opponent this time is 866 rated. Okay. Great start. Of course, she's getting a time advantage. It's been 2 minutes already. We'll see how long it takes. Interestingly, the arbiter or tournament director, whoever was speaking earlier, was saying that a lot of people are late this round, which is interesting. But Emily is right on time. In fact, she was early. In fact, as a streamer, she has to go to set up everything early. Not only the camera, but also the DGT board, which is working, as it was not working the first time. So some trial and error. Looks like we've got it fixed. And okay, we've got already a hand raised by the opponent next to Emily. We've got a question, it seems. All right, Emily's giving us a look. She sees the drama unfolding as well. We had a comment in the chat saying lots of kids these days. Oh, and now he's paused the clock. Opponent shook his head a little bit. So drama in the early stages here of round 4. This is the second to last round of the tournament. It is a 5-round Swiss, 90 plus 10 time control. Looks like the board has an audience now, and we have an arbiter. What was that response time? All right, I have no idea what happened or what was resolved. Emily looks like she also doesn't know. But that's okay. Seems like the issue was resolved swiftly, which is great. We don't want any hindrance of chess, which is why you should show up to your games on time. Because now Emily's just getting up, walking away. She's had it. Maybe gonna refill her water. What's up, Oak Chess? Shout out to Almany, Pizza Racer, Patton. Feeling chessy. We got Gimra, G, Iceman, Miranda. Welcome in, everyone. The Joe curse. Listen, dude, that's a good thing. She's getting a time advantage. Also, Emily's been winning, right? I didn't see the games yesterday, but did she win both of them? Do you guys want to fill me in? I think I was watching a bit of Robbie and Rachel commentating, and I think she was down in exchange and some pawns and won a whole rook and came back and won. So she had back-to-back comeback wins, which is incredible. And then the third game, she lost. Okay. She lost the afternoon game. Yeah. So she's 2 out of 3. Okay. Which is still very good. Hello, Destin. Welcome in. The Joe curse. I mean, I would take a late opponent if I had the option. Why not? It's free time. Hello, Graphite Stone. Welcome in. You're right on time to witness the beginning of Game 4. Good morning. Let us know where you're tuning in from. It is currently 9:20 in the morning for me. It is 10:20 for Emily. Although in this video it's actually 15 minutes delayed, so it's more like 10:05. Yeah, that's a rough opponent to have feeling chessy. Hopefully you got that squared away. 5:20 p.m. in Finland. Okay, so getting to dinner time, I suppose, depending on when you eat. Some cultures eat early, some eat late. I don't know. I mean, some people, despite their culture, eat kind of whenever. Gray Stockholm, Sweden. Yeah, it's kind of cloudy here today. Um, Watching from the UK, 15:20, or as we say here in the US, 3:20 p.m. You went on to win the game. That's the best way to keep your opponents quiet. Dinner time. Yes, thank you, Oak Chess. Okay, is that the opponent? Looks like Emily has a 7-minute advantage. Handshake. Now 8 minutes, and let's see his first move. You guys think E5? Maybe a Caro, maybe a French, maybe a Sicilian. What do we have? Oh, none of the above. Okay. There it is. Is this a Pierce? Emily, of course, taking the center, D4. The knight comes out. Now, Emily could push the knight away with E5, but then that would open up the D files, which I don't believe that she would want to do, as it could trade queens on bad terms for her. 420 in Germany, nice. Do we know his rating? I heard through the grapevine it is 866. But I don't know if that's USCF or FIDE. G6 now. So black looking to fianchetto their dark square bishop and get castled short side, presumably. 5 p.m. Yeah, we have quite the international crowd. You love to see it. Emily, international superstar, worldwide sensation, drawing fans from all over. What are they writing down, One Pharaohs? They are writing their move notation. So this is classical chess. These are officially rated games, which means that you have to write down your notation. So every move they make, they're marking that move on the score sheet, which is that small piece of paper next to them. Those papers are typically provided by the organizers. And at the end of their game, they will turn in, typically there's a carbon copy that you can tear off. Usually you keep the carbon copy and you turn in the actual score sheet. What's up, Uncle Jesse? Yeah, I'm still waking up, clearly. Is Hikaru Nakamura a cheater? I mean, I personally don't think so. Do you think otherwise? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the commands are not working. The bot is down, unfortunately. Hello, Wildcats. Welcome in. All right, Emily bringing out the dark square bishop. Now, I notice the knight and the bishop from the queen side have been developed, but not the king side minor pieces. So part of me is thinking against this fianchetto, Emily wants to play queen d2 and castle queen side, which I personally am a very big fan of, and I hope that we see it happen. This would be an amazing setup for white, leaving the rook on the h file and just launching the h pawn. Who's with me? Who else wants to see it? Okay, black fianchettos, as expected. Will Emily play queen to d2? This is the top move in the position. Now, there's many good moves here as well. You can develop your other pieces. No harm, no foul. You could also maybe consider an early h-pawn push. I think queen d2 is the most logical, the most solid, preparing for queenside castle, and also preparing bishop to h6, which would try to remove the dark squared bishop, which is one of the key defenders of this king, especially after they castle. Because if you trade the dark square bishops, there's going to be a lot of dark square weaknesses after black has put the pawns on light squares. So we'll see. Emily is thinking here. She's got some extra time. Her opponent was about 8 minutes late. Thank you, G. Welcome in, Elias. Asking about the players' ratings. We have Emily around 1,000 and her opponent around 866. Hello, Houseline. Shout out to the one and only. Looks like Houseline had a fun party the other day, returning from his journey. Still feeling the party. Very nice. A house party, exactly. Houseline knows how to have a good time. Well, it looks like Emily's got a spectator there. Perhaps a fan. Oh, it looks like Black's clock is at 0, so man was so late, he's flagged. Queen d2. Okay, I gotta fast forward the video because the board perhaps giving a little bit of a spoiler. Queen d2 played. Beautiful move here. Top move. It's just a lag, perhaps. This is called King's India Defense, what Black is playing. I think so. I called it a Pierce. So, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. She can feel my voice? I hope not. There was one time I was commentating for Phoebe, and instead of a YouTube stream that was shared, it was actually, we were on a Discord call sharing her camera, and I was not muted. So I started commentating, and the whole playing hall heard me. And she frantically took the phone and was like leaving the playing hall, trying to figure out how to mute it or deafen it. And I had no idea what was wrong. And then it dawned on me that I was commentating to the whole playing hall, the video, before I muted myself. So these YouTube streams are nice because I don't have to worry about that. Anyways, I've come a long way since then. Maybe. Anyways, black on the clock, probably thinking about castling, but also potentially worried about Emily's potential kingside attack, which is always the idea when you castle opposite of your opponent. So this could be an onslaught. They do have DGT board that Emily has personally provided herself. So major shout out to Emily for being prepared, getting it to work. Hello to Chelato. Welcome in. Good to see ya. Self-made. Emily's board is self-provided. I don't know if I'd say it was self-made. Anywho. Emily's using some major focus here. It is not her turn, but she is very intently looking at the position, which you love to see. A lot of people will make their move and then sort of zone out a little bit and wait until their opponent makes their move before they start thinking. But it is a huge skill to think on your opponent's clock. That is very valuable time. Just because your clock is not ticking doesn't mean that you don't have to use that time. What's up, Jim? What about knight to d7? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of good moves for black. I mean, castling, I think, is probably fine. The computer's not calling for it. So the computer might be a little scared of castling, which maybe is why the opponent is a little hung up here, realizing this position might not be so good for his king to castle kingside. Instead, it is, so knight b to d7 is definitely one of the top moves. It also likes the move a6, which is kind of confusing to me. But also it likes the move c6, which makes some sense. Both a6 and c6 are just covering the b5 square, maybe preventing checks against the king. But also they both help aid in the push of b5, which can help stir up some trouble on the queen side in anticipation of Emily castling queen side. Now, if we see an early attack from black on the queen side, Emily has maintained her 3 pawns on the king side as well. Emily could switch it up and still castle short. Now, we don't see either of these pawns pushed. We see instead b6, probably looking to fianchetto the light square bishop as well. And here it wants Emily to just dive right in, bishop to h6 immediately. But also queenside castles is a solid move, and h4. These round out the top 3 moves. h4 is aggressive for sure. It might even be premature, considering the king hasn't castled yet. But that being said, this is still a good move. We would still attack on the king side, regardless of whether or not the king is there. But Emily's got a great position. We'll see if she goes for bishop h6 or queenside castle. I think her previous move, queen d2, sets up very nicely for both of these. So both are pretty logical. Both are very good. We'll see what she comes up with. Yeah, black, meanwhile, they haven't committed the king just yet, looking to still develop the remaining of their minor pieces. So a bit of a standoff potentially between both of these sides, not wanting to give away just yet where the king will go. Because whoever castles first is declaring where their king will remain for the majority of the game, and that allows the opponent an opportunity to start an attack on that side. That being said, so far it's been pretty telegraphed that black will go kingside and white will go queenside, but that's part of the mind games that you can play within the game of chess, is trying to psych your opponent out. Maybe lead them on a fake trail. You can always change your mind. You don't have to follow through with your original plan. Obviously, making adjustments, reacting to your opponent's moves and their position and their plans is vital. So, Emily, maybe she will also develop the remaining of her minor pieces. She's got a light square bishop and another knight on the back rank. She might give a check. But okay, here she goes. Looks like she's ready. Or she's getting ready. I think she knows what she wants to do, but she's double checking, making sure she's not missing anything or blundering anything. You always want to look for your checks, your captures, your threats. What's Emily's OTB rating? She's around 1,000. You won the game after a time scramble. Jesse, that's always nice. Yeah, once you reach the 40 move, it depends on the time control. Some tournaments, they'll give you a bonus time after you reach a certain number of moves. It's always a scramble to get there if you're using all your time. And usually after you've made that time control, for whatever reason, that's a prime time to blunder. A lot of players can get exhausted after that. And I got lucky one time. I beat a 2,000 rated player in that sudden death time control. And funny enough, this guy's name was Eric Rosenberg, not Eric Rosen. But Eric Rosenberg. Okay, so bishop to b5 check has been played. Emily saw the window of opportunity open up. Opponent not blocking the b5 square and now dealing with these consequences. The check. Now, there's a lot of ways to block. You can still push c6, which is the best move, just throwing a counter to the bishop. Emily perhaps thinking that this pawn block will potentially damage black's structure. And the bishop will have to move, so Emily will need to figure out where it wants to go. So we don't see the pawn block, we see a bishop block. Now, that already is kind of like step in the wrong direction, perhaps, for this bishop. It's a mighty fine move. There's really not much wrong with this, but usually when you push the b6 pawn, you want the bishop to fianchetto. So black is conceding only a slight amount, nothing significant. But this could be part of the reason why Emily decided to insert this bishop check while she could. Now the question is, do you want to take or do you want to retreat? You could also leave it here, but notice your knight is a little overloaded. Maybe she strikes in the center with e5. But I probably don't think she'll do that. Usually when you overextend, this knight can move and this pawn gets hit. Might be weak. That being said, what do I think the best move is? Probably bring the bishop back. which she does exactly just that. Now, the computer actually preferred the move a4. I would shy away from that because I think that the king still should go queenside. So I don't necessarily want to overextend those pawns either. So she just brings the bishop back, saying now that the bishop is kind of on an awkward square. That's kind of where the knight wanted to go, to aid in one of these pawn pushes, probably. The knight could still go to c6, of course, but you're kind of blocking the c pawn there. Is this a 10-minute game? No, this is a 90-minute game with 10-second increment. Is it good for white to provoke c6? Well, I don't think the check was one of her best moves. She could have castled, she could have played bishop to h6, or she could have played h4. Those were the three, I think, logical moves, but obviously it's very tempting to give a check, and I still think it was a fine move for white. Maybe not just the best move. But yeah, I mean, it's a very solid position for white still. White controls the center. White maybe slightly ahead in development. Just a better position in general. Black, they haven't passed the 6th rank. It's a very passive start for black. It's a bit of a hyper-modern defense. I mean, trying to double fianchetto. And black will try to strike at the center at a later time. So we're expecting maybe one of these pawns to push e5 or c5. But neither side is committed to castling. Maybe a bit of nervous energy. And I like Emily's pacing. I like her concentration here. Usually you see this sort of posture when it's their turn, but it is Emily's opponent's turn. Emily's opponent looks pretty calm, laid back, right? Emily's leaning forward, both elbows on the table, just laser focused right now on the board. Oh, think you can't do more. I don't agree with that at all, but I appreciate you. Now it's time to be aggressive, says Almany. Definitely good to be aggressive in opposite side castles games. Neither side has castled yet, so that's why you might have some hesitancy on an attack just yet. But I agree, white definitely is in the position to be aggressive, and being aggressive can help you break down your opponent's defenses, right? And stir up some trouble, cause some mistakes, and hopefully win some material and win the game. So I definitely like being aggressive. I like making attacks because if you're the one that's causing problems, your opponent has to be on their heels defensively. And if they're defending, it's hard to cause an attack of their own. That being said, being too aggressive can often lead to mistakes as well on your end. If your opponent defends well, maybe you sacrifice some material and it doesn't pan out, and then you have to play an endgame down material, which is not always very fun. But Emily's first 2 games proved that it doesn't matter how much material you're down. Emily always has a chance to come back. And she made 2 back-to-back comebacks at the beginning of this tournament in the first 2 rounds. First game, she was literally down 8 points of material, down a whole rook and a whole knight, and yet she had 2 passed pawns that sealed the deal. So as long as Emily has at least 1 pawn remaining, she's not going to give up. She's always got a chance. And then the following game, I think she was down in exchange in 2 pawns for a 4-point material deficit, and yet the opponent blundered a whole rook. So sometimes these lower sections are more entertaining to watch because you just never know what's going to happen. You never know how bad it's going to get. And at the same time, no matter how bad it gets, you don't know who's going to win. Whereas the top level gameplay, you see someone lose a piece and, you know, they'll just resign or something. Anyways. Yeah, the body language between the two players, is like, you can barely tell that it's Black's turn. Unless the clock tells you. So, and it is Black's clock that's ticking. He arrived 8 minutes late and now has a 10-minute deficit. So usually when you're late, you try to play fast to compensate. This guy has lost an additional 2 minutes since he started making his moves, which I think benefits Emily for sure, especially because it looks like she's really dialed in here on her opponent's time, which is great. And even if she's like not thinking about it, it could get into her opponent's head. All right, now we have the move a6. So some of the best moves for Black, it liked knight to c6. I think it was considering castling as well. c5 was a move for sure. It's funny, it liked a6 just 2 moves ago, and now it's giving a question mark, as perhaps it is a little late for that. And now it does like the move e5 for Emily. Now, I had mentioned e5 earlier, and there's a couple reasons why it wasn't so good. e5 was actually the third move I suggested after the knight came to f6 here. And I said that the reason why you don't play e5 is because Black can open up the d file and force a queen trade not in White's favor, because we would be the ones recapturing, not being able to castle. Now, without the queens, the ability to castle is less significant because queens are the #1 cause of death for kings on the chessboard. So without the queens, the king is feeling much safer and doesn't necessarily need to castle. But now that we have a couple additional pieces on the board, e5 is very strong because the queens no longer get traded so easily because there's a couple of bishops blocking the d file. So dislodging this knight can be a nuisance to Black. It could be annoying. So pushing e5 could be very valuable tempo here, taking space into Black's half of the board, kicking the knight away. Now, one thing I also mentioned is that you don't want to overextend, because when the knight does move, there's a discovery from the bishop, and our pawn could become weak. So pawn push, takes. We could see a move like knight to g4, attacking the pawn twice. It's only defended once at that stage. Now we could develop our knight naturally and defend the pawn, so that could be helpful. So it all comes down to what Emily sees, what she wants to do. Does she go for it? Does she see it? And does she do something else? There's a lot of other good moves. We still like bishop h6. Castling, I think, is a mighty fine move. The computer likes knight f3. Knight f3, and now Emily has the right to castle either direction, which could be very helpful for sure. Now, if you play knight f3, there's this awkward move, bishop to g4. Now, it's not the end of the world if they capture and damage our pawn structure, because we could still attack on the king side and use that semi-open g file to our advantage. We could castle queenside, bring the other rook to the g file, and use the rook on the h file to support an h pawn push. And honestly, that's part of the reason why you want to control the center and you want to develop all your pieces, because being in a better position just affords you more options. So the more options you have, the more likely you'll have good options. So by maximizing where your pieces can go, you're maximizing your options. That's why you want to control the center, because from the center, you can go in any direction of the board. That's why knights are so good in the centers, because they have more squares to go to and better squares to go to as well. It's not only about the quantity of squares you control, but also the quality of squares. Not all squares are created equal. So knight f3 is a good move, needless to say. Castling, yeah, bishop here. We're really creating threats when we push e5 or we put the bishop on h6. We're forcing black to react to our attack. So they don't have time to do the things that they want to do. The things they want to do maybe are like castling or maybe developing a minor piece, right? Trying to improve their position. Now, when we make an attacking move, we have to make sure that our opponent doesn't have a move that both reacts to the attack and improves their position. So in this position, for example, they could castle, which is a move that black might think they want to do, but this could play into Emily's attack. This could help spring her h-pawn into action. So she has gone bishop h6. She is going for the dark square bishop trade. This is one of the best moves. And black will either take inviting her queen into the position, preventing black from castling, or black could castle. Now, there's a couple other options that are not good, but he does decide to take. This is the computer's top recommendation, actually. The second best move was castling. So if you castle, you have to have, I don't know. You have to have some guts, I'd say, because the h-pawn attack can be very scary. So even though this queen looks like it's causing a bit of a struggle here for this king to castle, the king is happy to say no thank you, saying I actually changed my mind. On second thought, I don't think I want to castle kingside, because Emily has also not castled kingside. The funny thing is, black could push one of these pawns, get the queen out of the way, bring the knight out, castle queenside, and Emily too can adjust her game plan, bringing out her knight, castle kingside, and then just attack somehow on the queen side. So two can play at that game. Right now they're outweighting each other, really, to see. But yeah, clearly now with the queen on h6, black will not be able to castle kingside, as it is not legal. The fun thing about playing OTB is that, you know, some people might still do that. In fact, I believe there was a game that International Master John Bartholomew played where either it was him or his opponent that moved their king back to the original square and then castled later illegally, but was caught and had to just move their king one square as they already touched their king. So in OTB, if you touch your piece, you're required to move it if it has a legal move. And opponent had just forgotten that the king had been moved already, ended up back on its starting square, and then tried castling with it later, got called out on it. It might have been John, actually. But anyways, what's up, Jan? What's my favorite square? Well, my favorite opening is e4, so maybe the e4 square. What are their ratings, Amy? Um, Emily is about 1,000, and her opponent is about 866. Good to see you, senpai. Thank you. Did Emily win the third round? I've been told that she lost her third round. Am I Slytherin? I don't think I am. I think I'm trying to be Gandalf. But the hat's a little floppy, so it tends to be a bit more like the sorting hat. Unfortunately for Lord of the Rings fans, maybe fortunately for Harry Potter fans. Um, Back to the Future, the third, saying D5 or E5, which one is a good move? So D5 doesn't actually help our position, I would say. E5 is a better move because it helps open things up. It helps attack black's pieces, right? There's some friction that happens here. When we play D5, maybe we're holding back one of these two pawns. However, notice our pieces. They want to control light squares, right? When we put the pawns on light squares, we're taking away options from our pieces. So D5 positionally is not good. E5 positionally is good. Amy's saying E5 is best. Are you wearing a wizard hat, Uncle Esquire? Yes. I can't lie to you about that. There's no way to put it. It's at least a hat. That's where your hat went, Gandalf? I'll give it back if you want it. I ordered it off Amazon. So, I don't know how Jeff Bezos got your hat, but it seems they have everything these days. You play the Stonewall. Nice. Sometimes Stonewall is a hard wall to break. Your hat's cute, thank you. I was Gandalf last year for Halloween. And now Halloween's quickly approaching again. I don't know if I can run it back. I was thinking it'd be funny. I was Gandalf the Grey. Imagine this year I'm Gandalf the White. Although that would require me to buy a whole new staff and costume. You can see the staff actually in my background. Just leaning up in the corner. Amazon is a Mordor registered company. It's funny. Okay, black has played the move e6. And once again, the best move is e5. Putting a question to this black knight. Yeah, Scotch is a very solid opening, I think. I think Scotch is very like beginner friendly, I'd say. It's like the opening that all the original PogChamps coaches taught. That's like what Charlie was taught from Danya. It's what Hikaru taught XQC. And I think that's not a coincidence either. I think Danya was doing his homework and scouting Hikaru's lessons and then prepped Charlie for it, which led to the infamous 6-move checkmate. But I also think it's what Hess taught Ludwig. And that also might have been influenced by Hikaru. But maybe it was not a coincidence. I don't know. The throbbing mate, exactly. um, yeah, we've seen a lot of Scotch games in PogChamps. I myself am an Italian player, which is pretty similar to the Scotch. I mean, you can have some transpositions there for sure. You could pivot if you want. It's like you still have e4 and knight f3. But when I play the Italian, though, I don't play knight f3 on move 2. I play bishop to c4. As opposed to e4, knight f3. But yeah, Emily, she played this opening with e4. She did not play bishop c4 or knight f3, but opponent didn't play e5. Opponent hasn't put a single piece on the 5th rank yet. So Emily has gladly taken the center control. Looks like Emily's got a fan, a spectator. All these kids, they're the next generation of chess players. It's really cool to think like maybe one of those kids in that room could become like a grandmaster. You never know. They've all got bright futures ahead of them. That kid's at least 1600. Maybe. Who knows? Okay, Emily, knight f3. This is not the best move, e5, but it is, according to the engine, the second best move. Now we see Emily getting up, walking away. That was a long thing for Emily, for sure. She had about a 10-minute advantage, now only about 4 minutes, if I can read the clock correctly. Don't let the chess.com clock fool you. Black has more than 0 time. Looks like an hour and 5 minutes left on their clock. Off to check Stockfish. That's exactly right. Bala, thank you for the prime. I appreciate that. Welcome. Can we go g4? Bala says. Okay, so e5, if she had played it. We've got d takes, d takes. And then I don't actually think the knight would go to h5. The computer's calling for knight d5. But also, I feel like knight g4 is more tempting than knight h5. If knight h5, g4 is a good move. It would be considered the second best move, actually. But yeah, the knight has nowhere to go from the corner of the board. It's even saying just queenside castles is very strong. You lining the rook up, there's like not really a good way to save this knight. So, but yeah, g4 just wins a piece, so that would have been really good. I was thinking knight to g4, trying to attack some things, but here, okay, there's only one winning move for white, actually. And it's queen to f4, because that also traps the knight. So that would have been really strong. Here, if, like, queen here, then we have, oh, just h3, and the knight's pinned. And notice both of these pieces attack f2, which is defended. So queen f4 is a very nice, accurate move. I was thinking we can go somewhere like this. But then it says king e7 is chilling. Now if I play a move like this, rook g8 takes rook h8, and you've found yourself a perpetual, I suppose. So that's kind of annoying. But okay. Knight f3 was played. The computer was saying after e5, d takes, it liked the move knight to d5 there. And that knight's defended by the pawn, so Yeah, the move e6 does help control d5 a little bit. That gives the knight an extra option if Emily decided to push the e5 pawn. But instead, she just played knight f3. She's gone off for a quick stroll there, and now it is Black's turn yet again. You kind of play the French, and you like the Philidor. I think I would not recommend the Philidor. I think the Philidor is a bit passive. And I'm not a big fan of the French either. I think you should play against e4. Probably I would recommend e5 or c5. I think a lot of people shy away from the Sicilian because it seems like really theory intensive. And I personally play e5 and I recommend e5. The only downside of e5 I would say is you play against the Ruy Lopez a lot of times, which I think is also pretty heavy on theory. And I personally don't even know necessarily how to play against it half the time or more. But I mean, Ruy Lopez is just one of many openings that people play. I mean, against e5, we'd already mentioned there's the Italian, there's a Scotch. White can do a lot of things. So, and even if you're afraid of a particular opening, I would say, you know, face your fears, right? It's a good way to learn. New positions, new openings. Pizza saying that the French is very principled. I had to preface that Pizza said it because I don't want to be on record for saying that. No, there's a lot of strong players that play the French. I definitely know Alexander Botez is a very strong believer in the French opening. I think the French just isn't like it can't be Black's best, you know? Like where's the light square bishop going, you know? That's my main gripe with it really. What sort of hat do I have? Well, this is a wizard's hat. The Norwegian Gambit, I don't know if I've heard of that actually. The Khan or Taimanov. Yeah, Emily waiting for her opponent's response here. Black has some issues on their side of things, right? Mainly where you're going to castle. So probably the Black Knight needs to develop at some point, and also the queen has to get out of the way. So I'm wondering if queen to e7 is a move. The computer's not suggesting it. The computer's also saying bishop to c6 is a move, which finally gets it on that main diagonal that it wanted originally. Clears a space for the knight. Computer's also suggesting you could play the move knight to g8, which actually is a little bit fancy. It looks like it's trapping the rook in the corner after queen to g7, but then black has the nice queen to f6, developing the queen, sort of forcing a queen trade actually, which would have been really helpful for black, considering how annoying the queen is. So these are a couple of the main ideas black has. Black dipping below an hour on their clock. Yeah, black using their sweet time for sure. So everything's going smoothly so far for Emily. I don't want to jinx her, but her 2 wins have come from a completely lost position, completely down in material. And Emily's off to a strong start here in this game. So I don't know if that bodes well for her. I haven't quite looked at the third game that she played. So if anyone remembers and wants to give a brief recap, did she start strong and then end poorly? Or was it a strong match the whole way? I mean, interestingly, you could argue she could have lost either or both of the first 2 games she played. So when you're 2 out of 2 in a Swiss, you're probably going to get paired against a stronger player that's also 2 out of 2. So it makes sense that she would lose the third game. Do I play Roy Shigorin? I don't know. I don't know the theory of most openings, nor the names of most openings, honestly. But yeah, this is a Beards, and then it turned into an Indian game, apparently. So I guess not the King's Indian necessarily. I don't know. All right. Her opening was okay, but she became passive. Yeah. Yeah. I think the opening is the opening is where a lot of players can kind of understand the like opening principles, the basics, and play a decent opening, but then it's tricky once you get to the middle game. Right? It's the middle game is a lot more nuanced. It's a trickier part of the game, I think, than the opening. I think a lot of people are concerned about the opening because there's like a lot of openings, a lot of theory and lines and things like that, but no one has everything memorized. So at a certain point you gotta start playing on your own. I think that's where like maybe a player's really good at the opening, but their knowledge kind of drops off once you get to the middle game. And that's where a lot of more skilled players can make a comeback. So, um, Emily in her first 2 games, what she did was actually she just played really well through the end game. So that's where a lot of players struggle as well. So no matter how good your position is, if you don't know how to convert, you don't have good end game technique, you can make a lot of blunders, and there's a lot of ways to come back. So it's best to be well rounded, right? If you're good at all 3 stages of the game, you're a tough opponent to beat. So Emily might have the advantage here in the opening, but we don't know. Her opponent has played a good move here. Knight to c6, getting a minor piece out. And 1 step closer to castling for black. Emily, the world's her oyster right now. She can push either pawn now. She can castle either direction. I mean, what a luxury to have. She can go out with this king attack if she wanted to. Now, the best, it still is preferring e5. So interestingly, when we were comparing e5 and d5, I had mentioned d5 is not good because it blocks our pieces, right? It also blocks the d file. So even though there is an e pawn here now, and we're still like opening up files and lines, We're now attacking a knight in the process, same as we were with e5. d5 is still not better or as good as e5 because we still are putting a pawn on a light square as well as on the d file. If we castle queenside, that rook will be staring at its own pawn, right? Whereas if we push the e pawn and we end up with a pawn on the e file and on a dark square, these pieces are still very happy seeing their own space and opening up. But also the rook that could land on d1 will also be a happy piece because it's not looking at the backside of a pawn, it's looking at black's pieces down the line. But Emily has a choice. She has many options, many choices actually. Computer's even suggesting h3 is a move, just guarding against g4. And also this e5 move, we were looking at options for the knight that's extremely limited, right? If it goes to g4, it's trapped by queen f4. If it goes to h5, it's trapped by g4, right? So it could only really go to d5 or there was this option we were talking about, knight to g8, which looks like it traps the rook, but black has this option, this resource, queen f6, to trade queens. If we push that e5 pawn, the knight can no longer go to g8 because the rook is indeed trapped. That e pawn removes black's resource of queen f6. So e5 is just eliminating just another option for this knight, really forcing one move. So Emily has all the options. Black's options are becoming very limited, right? And when that happens, good things happen. Because a lot of times, if you only have one option, you only have one way out of something, there's a good chance that you might miss it, right? If you have a lot of options, maybe you don't assess all of your options, but maybe you still find one that is working or is fine. Like in Emily's first game that I watched, and she was down a whole rook and a knight, but she created two very deep passed pawns. It looks like, you know, rook and knight together, like how would they lose against a couple of pawns? Well, her opponent had to play accurately. There was only two moves that the opponent could have played in a particular position. It had to have been a knight move that was putting pressure on her pawns. Opponent missed it. Opponent gave a check, and that rook move cost them the game. It doesn't matter at that point how many pieces of material you have. If your opponent is able to queen and you can't stop it, then the queen is going to win. That's exactly what Emily did. So even though the position was completely lost for her, it came down to a moment where the opponent had to make one of two winning moves. They missed both of them. They didn't realize how dire their position was, and it cost them the game, despite being up 8 points of material. So in this position, Emily could play the move e5, and that really puts black down a path where their knight only has one good option, right? Even though the knight has, you can count however many legal moves. What is that? 5? No. 6? Sorry. Wait. Oh, it is. Yeah, it is 5. Normally a knight can go 8 squares. This knight is blocked 3 different ways. But you can see, like, this move obviously is terrible because the knight's covering it. So the knight has, in the immediate turn, 4 safe squares. But after she plays e5, only one of them is truly safe. The other 3 are losing material. So like mathematically, if the opponent is making moves at random for the knight, that gives you like 75% chance of winning material, which is pretty good. Now, obviously, you have to expect your opponent to find and play the best moves, but you want to give your opponent as many opportunities to make a mistake as possible. So you're really forcing your opponent to be on their A game if they only have one out. So hopefully Emily's considering E5. But at the end of the day, like there's a lot of great moves. She doesn't have to play E5. She can castle either which way she pleases. She could do something completely different. She might be concerned about queenside castling because of black trying to attack her. But at the same time, you have to remember black's king is in the center of the board and will not castle unless this queen gets kicked. And even if the queen gets kicked, the queen can go somewhere threatening. The only way the queen can get kicked is by the knight, and both of these moves are not really good for black. They're definitely weakening black's position further, leaving things susceptible to attacks, either the rook in the corner or the knight that's undefended. Another thing to think about is when we play e5, it's inhibiting them from playing e5, right? Sometimes we like to push pawns so that our opponents are not able to push pawns, right? So something to think about is black, their last move is putting pressure on these central squares. Imagine if black is now able to push e5. What that does is it secures the knight on f6. It also opens up the bishop and the knight, right? We were mentioning the knight having trouble going to g4 because of queen to f4, attacking the knight, right? Not a lot of great options for the knight to go from there. But if this pawn is pushed, the bishop helps lend a protecting hand over the knight. And this pawn here prevents us from playing queen f4. It's taking options away from our pieces. So not only is e5 good for us, it's also bad for the opponent, right? And in many ways, it might make like it seems like, oh, that's a no-brainer, obviously. Why am I wearing the hat? Because it was redeemed. Maybe it's been enough time to take it off, but maybe it'll be redeemed again. I don't know. Yeah, Patton. That first round of this tournament that I was commentating, Emily dropped a whole rook for nothing, and then she later sacrificed a knight just to push her pawns, and she came back. She won that game. So let that be a lesson to you all, not to leave early or resign early. So there's always hope. There's always a chance. And Emily didn't give up. She fought on, and she won. She came back against all odds. He looks more mysterious. What's my USCF rating? I'm about 1900. A little bit less than that, actually. But yeah, thank you, Feta. Okay. So it is Emily's turn here. She's now below an hour on the clock for the first time, but she still has a 5-minute advantage. Nothing significant. Okay, and she's gone queenside, which is a great move. In fact, the second best move behind e5. Now, black has to try to get their king to safety as well, because even if we don't use the rook on the h-file to attack, we could also just bring the rook to the e-file. And at this stage, white has already completed their development. They've castled the king and they've connected the rooks. Now, the rook could improve here. This is the only piece of white's that hasn't moved. But Emily's in prime position to begin attacking, right? And as black, you want to make sure that you are also fully developed and castled before your opponent starts attacking. Because as soon as Emily starts attacking, black might not be able to afford the opportunity to get their king to safety anymore. Your king in the center of the board can be a sitting duck if your opponent is fully developed and ready to attack. So Emily is in prime position to bring the heat. Black's got to brace themselves. Queen e7 is the best move, retaining an option to shield the king in some way. But also Queen e7, as mentioned by Amy, is also another option to get this queen out of here. So earlier we were mentioning knight g8 is a way to kick the queen out. And knight g8 inhibits black from castling kingside, but if the queen leaves, then the knight could develop. What we don't want to see is knight g8, queen to g7 here, because we're really helping out our opponent. Queen f6 is a great way to get the queen off the board. Queen's forced to take, and then the knight recaptures, and lo and behold, black not only can castle a kingside again, but can still castle a queenside if they want. And with the queens off the board, the attack is greatly diminished. So the queen is a great nuisance to this king. So trading queens would be very good for black, because black is behind in development. They're behind in king safety. So queen trade would be very smart for black. So if we see a maneuver like knight g8 or queen e7 to f8, it's in Emily's best intentions to leave queens on the board. She should retreat her queen. She doesn't have to go full throttle, all out, diving deeper or trading would not be in her best interest. Thank you, Brody. Shout out to Brody. Wish we had more tournaments in Ann Arbor. Maybe you could become a tournament director. There's a very big Smash tournament that happens called the Big House, which is funny because I used to work with the guy that started the Big House. Emily's doing exceptionally well. Emily's doing great. She's got herself a beautiful position, a beautiful start to this game. But it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. There's a lot of chess left to be had here. Both players with 50 minutes or more. Smash Burger, I'd be such a fan of that. I love Smash Burgers. No, Smash is referring to a video game. I like Melee, but there's also Ultimate. So it's Super Smash Bros. Melee, and there's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and then it had like Brawl. So there's a series of games. Brawl is not good. I don't think anyone likes Brawl. But basically you have a lot of Nintendo characters that are fighting. It's a fighting game. And the goal of the game is to knock your opponent off the stage. So you don't have like a health bar, you actually have a percentage. So every time you get hit, your percentage goes higher. And the percentage increases your knockback. So the higher your percentage is, the farther the hits will move your character. So if you get to a really high percentage, your character can start flying after they get hit. And the idea is to knock the character off the stage. So it's a really fun game. I think Melee now is over 20 years old of a video game. And it's extremely fun to watch. One of the previous PogChamps participants was a Melee player by the name of Hungrybox. His name is Carlos, I think. I don't know. He just goes by HBox. Anyways, he plays this character called Jigglypuff, which is a Pokemon. Um, but you all should know who Mario is and his brother Luigi, who's my favorite character. But they also have Link and Zelda and Samus and I don't know, Ganondorf and Mewtwo and like Pikachu. They have Kirby. They've got a couple other characters that are like, I don't know really what they're from. There's like Captain Falcon, there's Fox and Falco, who are like the main characters, really. There's like, I think like tier lists mainly were for like sorting the strength of the characters. Oh yeah, they've got Bowser, they've got Donkey Kong, uh, I don't know. Super Smash Bros. Melee is one of my favorite games of all time. Definitely one of my favorites to watch. So yeah, that's the Smash tournament I was talking to that happens at Ann Arbor. Okay, we have a move here from Black. So Black plays knight to g4. This is an okay move, but it doesn't quite address this is kind of tricky. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I will not lie to you all. It's attacking the queen and it's attacking this f pawn, which is now undefended. Now that white has castled, and if black wins this pawn, not only is it a pawn, but it's also a fork of the rooks. This would be a 3-point material swing. So notice this queen is very limited on where it can go, actually. Right? We can't just go to f4 now because we're going to lose some material. We can't go here to defend the pawn because black can then trade. So there's only one good move, truly, and it's queen to d2, defending both the queen and the f2 pawn. Now, there is another move that we must consider, right? And it's queen to g7. Now, queen to g7, we were looking at lines of knight g8, queen f6. Knight g4 also defends queen f6. So if we go queen to g7, there's queen f6. And we don't want to trade queens. The queen would be trapped in that line. So that's why e5 is also so helpful. It's because it guards against queen f6. Now, Emily's played, she's found the best move here. Queen all the way back to d2, defending our f2 pawn. And this move ultimately, although it flushes white's queen out of the board, it leaves this knight vulnerable in many situations. And the knight's not going to be forever on g4. We could kick it quite easily with the move h3, which could end up costing black some tempo. In fact, the computer's saying the best move is actually bringing the knight back to f6 immediately. So, we'll see. If we're able to play h3 and the knight goes back, then e5 comes with another tempo. And opening up this file could be very advantageous for white, with queen and rook now lined up together. And I'm also very proud of how quickly Emily was able to find and play this move. She's maintaining an even deeper time control. You ended a game with 54 minutes. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, being able to like sit and think for a long time is definitely a skill that not everyone has the patience for. But it's definitely a very important skill for classical chess. right? Because if you're not using all of your time and you're playing super fast, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage. You're basically giving time odds in a way, right? Chessie has a poll. How will Emily do? Win, draw, or lose? I unfortunately cannot create polls in Emily's chat, but maybe a moderator could figure it out. You love longer time controls. Yeah, a lot of people they can't do speed chess either, right? They can't think that fast, and it's frustrating if you know you have a good position but you don't have the time to figure it out, and you just kind of blunder and you squander it all away, and then you look back at the computer and you're like, oh man, this was winning. I was winning like a million different ways and I just couldn't find it, right? Because the position can be really tricky and complicated, and it's also part of the beauty of speed chess too, right? It's that it's not necessarily about who can get the better position, but who can play the best in time pressure. So being able to either calculate at that speed or remain calm enough to convert your position regardless of how much time is left is very exciting and thrilling. And, you know, sometimes you have to accept it. It doesn't always work out. And you just got to play faster and better the next time. I think chess can be very exciting at all time controls. And it's fun to play all time controls. I've been mostly playing speed chess online, but playing over the board is also very fun. I played most recently in Vegas back in June and hope to be back in Vegas again for chess. I'm not sure if it'll be the North American Open or the National Open. I've played only 2 tournaments since moving to St. Louis, in St. Louis, but both of them were not classical. I played one Blitz tournament and one Rapid tournament. The Rapid was pretty bad. I lost all my games. In the top quad on Friday, not the most recent Friday, a couple Fridays ago. But I didn't know they streamed the top quad every week, so all my games were on their stream. So that was kind of brutal, but that's okay. There was one game I should have won. I was winning, and I put myself in time pressure. So that's what happens. Is Emily now 15 minutes ahead on the clock? Yeah, I can't quite see the last number on her clock, but according to chess.com's clock, it's 56 minutes. So it does indeed look like she's 15 minutes ahead, which is pretty good. And yeah, we have another knight move here. So the last 2 moves by black, moving these central knights out and attacking Emily's material. Now, there's a move that the computer's suggesting that I don't necessarily agree with, but it's saying to bring the bishop all the way back to f1. Now, that's a good move because you're preventing the knight from taking your bishop, and you're not blocking your queen's defense of f2. However, you could move your bishop up to c4. This is the second best move, but it doesn't like it so much because of the move b5, now hitting with tempo. And then from there, it wants you to bring the bishop back to f1 again, as opposed to going to b3, because I suspect if you go to b3, it just wants black to continue this onslaught on the queen side. Onslaught maybe is a bit aggressive of a word. It's more of just like a push, a slight attack. This is where Emily's king has castled. So whenever we give these pawn pushes with tempo, you're giving your opponent space and time. So those are very valuable resources on the chessboard. If you can afford giving those freely, then you will save space and time yourself. That allows you to do things that you want to do. So we'll see if Emily decides maybe she is concerned about the b5 push and then subsequently an a5, a4 pawn push if she goes forward. She might also just ignore the threat. There is a move, knight e1, the computer's suggesting to defend the bishop with a knight. Importantly, you don't want to take back with the queen, right? You're getting triple forked and dropping a pawn, so that's not good. And taking with the pawn is a bit weakening as well, less than ideal. Really blocking that d file for your pieces. So bishop f1 would be a good move. Now, this knight move, it looks like it's causing us so much trouble, really, but it's kind of short-sighted in a way. It's an idea for sure. It could cause Emily some problems. If she finds bishop f1, then ultimately black is creating more problems for themselves. That being said, bishop f1, it's not a natural move. It's not an easy move to make, even though it is the best move in the position. So these knights ultimately are not in good spots, right? This knight, it kicked away the queen, and it's attacking the pawn. Emily found a great response to that. This knight is attacking this bishop, which could be annoying. But if the bishop comes back, you know, ultimately these knights, that one attack they had didn't pan out, and now they're just kind of in no man's land. They're both unprotected. They're both just awkwardly placed, and black's bigger issues have not been addressed at all. And so black can strand themselves with even more issues, right? Not only have you not castled and your king's in the center, but now you have a knight that's on the edge that can get kicked. And not only one knight, but two knights, both with the same issue, right? Now, if Emily leaves the bishop here, or she goes somewhere where black can attack it, black can get some substance, some value out of this move, right? Which can justify this move. But if Emily finds bishop f1, then black has now added to their list of problems, which in the long run will benefit Emily. So it's a not so good move if white finds their best response, but there's a lot of ways that white can play differently, and ultimately it's still a very solid position for white. It's not like she plays bishop f1 and she just wins the game. It's like she could do a lot of different things here and still be ahead. Even if she concedes a little bit of ground to black, she's still ahead in the position. But you don't want to concede things unnecessarily. So she has played bishop c4. This is like more in my personal nature to play. I hate retreating to the back rank, disconnecting the rooks. Like, it's very unnatural to play a move like bishop f1. This is still a very good move, right? We're putting a bishop into the center of the board. And it's not even certain that black will play a move like b5, although b5 is extremely natural. b5 and the computer still really likes bishop f1, but I would suspect the bishop comes back here, and now a5, and now we're probably going to play a3. There's the knight going back somewhere, who knows. But yeah, black could really start attacking on our queen side, which is kind of annoying. That's not the move that I wanted to make. But yeah, we'll see here. Definitely b5 is the best move for black in response to bishop c4. And then maybe getting that a-pawn involved, right? So black could start something here. Even if they get all those moves in, like, black still has a lot of long-term problems. And lo and behold, black plays inaccurately here. Black is playing against themselves. They're not doing themselves any favors. They're creating lines directly at their own open king. They haven't developed this queen. They haven't castled the king. They're opening things when they should be closing things. This pawn push, we can take and then open the e-file. Also, not to mention, it's not even calculated properly. Notice this pawn is only defended by 2 things, and yet we're attacking with 3. So mathematically, we should be able to win this pawn. This should be a free pawn. That being said, it can still be tricky, right? The queen is x-raying this square through the bishop, so there could be a discovery that we got to watch out for. That being said, taking is pretty much a no-brainer here. We really do want to take because we also get the added benefit of opening up the position against an exposed king in the center. Yeah, Tommy, for as much as Emily's leaning forward, her opponent is sitting back in his chair. We've noticed this pretty much from the get-go. This has been their body position, regardless of whose turn it is. And here it is, Emily's turn. She's got a 10-minute advantage on the clock, and she's got a plus 3.2 advantage on the eval bar, although neither player knows it. I mean, maybe Emily can sense it, especially after this move. This is definitely not a good move by Black. Black needed to keep applying pressure on the queen side. Instead, they decided to play in the center, which Emily already had control over, and Black's king is in the center. So that's definitely not where you want to play. And yeah, Black has to face the consequences of their actions here. They played that move a little quicker than they wanted to. Maybe they're starting to feel the pressure, right? Less than half of their original time on the clock. They showed up a few minutes late, and their time advantage, or more, I should say, disadvantage, is increasing with every minute that passes. So here, Emily has a couple options. The rook check is actually not good, because we have to see what their response could be. They could play a move like bishop to e6, which helps defend that d pawn. So Emily must avoid the temptation of the check and take this pawn while the iron is hot. So her best move right now is knight takes d5. We don't want to take with the bishop first because our bishop is a very valuable piece. If we take with the bishop, the black knight can take it. You might still consider it because maybe we really like our knight all up in black space, but in the long run, the bishop's going to be perhaps more useful. You know, you could get a tempo attacking the rook. You're still addressing the king side. And the bishop can come back and still have a major influence in the position. It could cause more problems in the long run. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to win for sure. Just the simplest is to take the pawn. Rook check is still winning, but we're not winning the material immediately. So that's kind of annoying. So we'll see what Emily decides on here. Looks like she has more time on her clock than on chess.com's clock. But also chess.com's clock says that her opponent has 0 minutes. And it's been saying that since the start of the game. If rookie... No, but the problem is our bishop's hanging, right? So check, bishop block, knight g5. They can take our bishop, which I don't think it's worth it. Yes, we can, you know, take and cause some trouble, but no, the knight is defended here by the queen. Well, they're not that far apart in time. It's a less than 10-minute difference for them. So for the most part, they've been sticking around this sort of time difference. Also, shout out to Tommy. Good to see you. Um, yeah, I think most people agree that St. Louis is the chess capital of the U.S., but I think Charlotte has definitely made its name as a chess city. Okay, Emily's played the best move. Knight takes on d5, just winning a pawn in the center, which is huge. This is shaping up to be a very clean game for Emily. Her opponent is kind of missing the mark on finishing their development, right? They've instead decided to bring in their knights, right? Black has decided to attack before they've completed development. So that is definitely a handicap in their position. They've also decided to open up the center and give away a pawn. All of these things are helping Emily a lot. She didn't give rook he1 check, but she retains that as an option for later. So now that she's grabbed the pawn, this is definitely going to be a strong idea. This move is also attacking the knight two different ways. So most likely black will trade, and then when her bishop takes, she's causing even more problems, right? Bishop takes hits the rook immediately. Now, black could mess up and push their c-pawn, thinking that the bishop defends it. But after the rook check, now the bishop can't defend anymore, because we're going to grab that pawn for free with a fork, actually. So if we take and the rook moves, now they can't castle queenside anymore. And don't forget, we can also still play this h3 idea. Kick the knight away, bring the queen back in. They can't castle kingside, rook check. They might have to move the king and can't castle. And it's just these issues are starting to compound faster and faster. I think our opponent is now fully razzled here. They've played b5, which they should have played earlier instead of d5. And now Emily has even more opportunities, more options here. Queen takes b4 is going to be an absolutely devastating move here because of the influence it has on the black king, along with the knight that's remained on d5, as well as the combination of the rook entering into the equation. We're going to have a devastating combo here if Emily takes the knight with the queen. Now, she could also just save the bishop. She could take the knight. She could play h3. She could give check if she wanted to. Everything's winning. She's got an absolute dream of a position here with the white pieces and a time advantage. She can barely contain herself with excitement. I mean, look at how far. She's never leaned this far, you guys. I moved the board earlier. You could tell that the board I have is not even centered. But look at how close she is. She can almost move the pieces with her mouth. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration there. I don't think we'll see that. Um, but no, it's like the closer you get to the board, the more you can calculate, right? It's like maybe the opponent would be playing better if he... Emily's dominating the space. She's fully leaning on the table. She's literally hovering over the board. She's getting that top-down view that she's used to playing online. I mean, the opponent, from his angle, I mean, it's hard to even see over the pieces. So the posture is very important. So now Emily has played honestly as well as you could for an opening, and now she has to pick the fruit. She has to reap the rewards of her superior position. This could be a long think because she has so many good options. You could face option paralysis here. where everything looks so good, it's hard to just choose one. Which is really just a dream to have. To be up on time and to have so many winning moves. Um, so the funny thing would be to play a bad move and blunder. But I mean, it's like it's hard to blunder even. I don't know. Yeah, obviously the game is far from over. She still has to convert, but it's an exciting time to be alive here for sure. What's the worst move she could make? She could blunder her queen like this or like this. Um, those obviously are not realistic at all. She could take a pawn when she doesn't need to and blunder a piece. Um, no, but she's not gonna blunder here. The worst evaluation the computer could give her on this next move would be like a miss or something. Like maybe she doesn't take the knight like that. Maybe she takes the knight like this and loses the bishop like that. But even that's still very strong for her. Even like a move that I don't think she would play, the computer's suggesting h3 is the second best move. It completely ignores everything that's happening in the center where all the action is, but it's maintaining pressure, right? Even if she messes up on one side of the board, as long as she keeps a threat in some way, shape, like even if she blunders this bishop, like it's not really a blunder. This knight's hanging two different ways, and she sees it as well. Like she understands, she was expecting probably knight takes, and she was probably prepared for it. She could maintain the status quo and bring the bishop back and still be in a good position, right? Oh, you guys don't see the board. It's a good point. Bring the board back. All right, fine. So you guys asked so nicely, I guess. I forgot everything I was talking about. She could blunder her queen. She could lose the knight. Oh, wow. It doesn't even actually like taking the here. It likes taking here. I guess you lose the bishop. But, what else was I saying? She's attacking this knight twice. She could play h3. She can give this check. Best is to take here, for sure. With this combo, it's going to be devastating. Although, let's play this out maybe a little bit. Check and bishop block. And now what we want to do is, it's saying queen to c5. It's also liking knight f4. Yeah, so this move, you just have to watch out that the knight's hanging. So queen c5 is very strong. And we don't want to like take here and defend the knight this way, because now the king can get out of the center. And now we're also in a pen. So it's pretty annoying. And we don't really want to go here because the queen takes... Oh, the queen takes here with check too, actually, is much better. Because our queen's no longer there. So, yeah. She has to have a couple more accurate moves before she's just completely crushing. But I have full faith and confidence. Looks like she's played rook he1 check here, which is a great move. So the best move is king to f8, which honestly is pretty scary considering you can bring the queen in here after this knight is gone. I think the most human and likely move is going to be bishop to e6. And there it still really likes taking on b4 with the queen. and we could see essentially a transposition of if she had taken here first. Isn't the black knight hanging? Yes. The black knight is hanging. Our bishop is hanging, though. But in this position, the king is hanging. So black will react to the king check first. And that's kind of also a sign Emily's in a good headspace right now, right? She's not overreacting to just the absolute chaos of everything hanging on this side of the board. And she's cashing in a check. And also another really good thing to know is that Emily grabbed on d5 here. Like as soon as the check was available, she didn't just play the check for the sake of giving the check, right? She understood that she needs to take this pawn first while she could, because if she gives the check immediately, black has an opportunity to defend this pawn by opening up the queen. So Emily is like on top of her game right now. She grabbed the material first, and then she gave the check. So she's seeing things well, which is great. So here, black really has to decide between king f8 or bishop to e6. There's really no other way to put it. I mean, the knight could block, which would be hilarious. Hilariously bad. Just giving the knight away for free, because the rook takes either way with check, and you're back to square one. So I'm really expecting bishop e6. I think bishop e6 makes a lot of sense, and then Emily has to figure out how she wants to play from there. So we very well could see her take the knight. The best is to take with the queen, but I could see her taking with the knight, because now that frees the d-pawn push to attack a pinned piece, right? She should be winning material here. She's already won a pawn, but we would love to win a piece. It is tricky, though, because she does have a piece hanging. So it could be tempting to try to save the bishop, perhaps. But she also has to realize once the bishop moves, it opens up the queen, so there's additional pressure on her knight. So you're not really in time to save your bishop, because you will lose your knight. All right, bishop to e6 has been played. The most logical move. So here's another thing to think about. If the black king is avoiding moving, it's because naturally you want to maintain your possibility of castling in the future, right? Castling is a very valuable resource. You could take away that option by taking with the queen. The funny thing is our queen was guarding this pawn. We could, in theory, lose this pawn with a tempo. But this is like another example of just why the knight moves were not good to begin with, is because it's so far beyond what black needs to prioritize, right? Because, you know, maybe you're tempted by the pawn. Maybe you're tempted by the material you could win, right? The rook is hit. It maybe gets you a tempo, but the attack can just become so strong for white that you could just give up the rook freely you could play this move like queen c5. You're threatening knight takes, which is a fork as well. You'd force the king here, which doesn't look safe at all, right? And yeah, otherwise you have to give up the queen. So yeah, taking the knight is best here. We'll see if Emily plays it. She might not, which would be okay. It'd be a very, very aggressive, very strong move for sure. So, and you see again, Emily's getting as close as possible to the board. Her spider senses are tingling. She's about to pounce. When did Emily become a beast? She always was. How is knight take c7? Well, I think it's a bit unnecessary. You're helping the black queen develop. You're giving away your knight unnecessarily. So even though you lose your knight, you could win this knight, but then this bishop is hanging. So we lose another piece. Now you could trade queens and then push this pawn, you get the piece back, but at that stage the king becomes much safer, and then maybe knight takes f2 actually is annoying. So I would say it's just unnecessary. We don't need to do it. I think that when we take this and we lose our bishop, then we play a move like queen c5, and then we're threatening knight c7 essentially for free, right? And we're keeping this knight as a very strong attacker as well, right? We're within checking distance of the king. We're guarding the f6 square, which is very important in a lot of lines. If we try to kick this knight away, for example. So this knight is one of our best pieces right now. This knight, the rooks, they're putting a lot of pressure in the center. This bishop is valuable, but I think getting the queen on this diagonal at the cost of our bishop, and then also the queen can then step in and then aid in the attack in combination with the knight. It's a deadly combo for sure. Now, it's easy to see with the engine for sure. Without the engine, there's a lot of other things that could be running through Emily's mind. Understanding that, like, for example, the f2 pawn is hanging if she takes with the queen. Understanding that her bishop is hanging, and also that her knight is currently hanging as well. So she might be tempted to take with a knight, I think, and maybe she'll push for d5. In fact, that is now the computer's recommendation. It was saying taking with the queen. Knight takes and pawn push, they're also very good. And I think the important thing to know is that's like what immediately should win you a piece. Wow, she's taken on b5 first with check. Now, this wasn't a check a move earlier. I pointed this out as a bad move. Now it's not so bad because it's with check. So she will then still win a piece, but it's maybe a little risky. You've given your opponent an opportunity perhaps to play c6, which isn't necessarily good, but you're also giving them an open a file to work with, which is pointing at your king, and the a pawn currently isn't defended. Now, knight takes will defend it, but maybe just kind of unnecessary to give this to your opponent. Now, that being said, it's still very much winning. Emily's given up her bishop with check, but now she should win this knight. It's important to take with the knight, for a few reasons. First off, if she takes with the queen, this knight will drop, but also this a pawn is hanging. So, okay, she has taken with the knight. This does defend the a pawn. But I think the more important thing is that we are now threatening this move d5. So here, black actually can castle. But the attack is not over. Emily can still play d5. Also, Emily still has the move h3. Maybe the knight's coming into c6. Maybe the queen's going to get into h6. And the knight can come to g5, threatening mate on h7. So Emily is up 2 pawns, but definitely could have been much better for her. I think she could have won a piece or had a devastating attack, but she's cashing out. Black now gets the king finally to safety, castling short side, and really the king is living a second life now. So Emily kind of letting the king out of the middle. The bishop's no longer pinned, but a 2-pawn advantage is nothing to scoff at for sure. This knight is actually hard to kick because there's no a pawn, and the c pawn is kind of covered right now by Emily's pawn in the center. So whenever you castle queenside, it's always pretty logical to invest a king b1 move, just helping protect the a pawn. She could also push a3. The computer's not suggesting any of that. The computer wants essentially full throttle. It likes d5. It likes h3. I think h3 makes a lot of sense, helping our queen and knight get in. d5 also just makes a lot of sense as well. So, yeah, these pieces are kind of annoying, pointing at our queen's side. So Emily still has a marvelous position. It even likes the move knight e5, interestingly. Yeah, Emily is playing good chess. Okay, she's played king b1. This is a very natural move. But she could have played a little more aggressively. Her position's still very good, and she still can be aggressive. This is a bit of a just a prophylactic move, really. So the only thing wrong with it is that she didn't need to necessarily. She could have done something like d5 or h3, and sometimes it's important to be on top of your aggression, like being timely with your attacks, just keeping your opponent on the back foot, right? Because now, like, this doesn't create any threats. Black can now play freely. They can make their own advancements. The computer's just saying knight f6 is the best move. And then still likes d5 a lot. But there's not that much time lost. Like, she's in such a good position that she doesn't have to be on top of it. She doesn't have to be timely. But it's always like, if you have a couple moves here and there, it can kind of add up. So, like, when she took on b5, it's fine. It's good even, but it was not the best. So if you miss out on the best move enough times, like, you're just kind of giving your opponent a couple opportunities here and there to make the position slightly better for themselves. Like, letting the king castle, right, is kind of what we've conceded by not taking on b4. Or like not taking on b4 with a knight and then pushing d5 right away. So that could have won her a piece, for example. And like if you could do a tactic like that, it's very devastating. So we don't want to miss out on too many like opportunities. Now, in the last move, King B1, it's not like she would have won a piece by attacking a piece. But it can add up over time. Enough moves like that. Ultimately, I don't think it's a major opportunity lost. I don't think it's too significant. I think King B1's a very natural, very good move, actually. Very common when you castle queenside. So, good prophylaxis for sure. And, you know, when you play a move like D5 or H3, it's very obvious for black how to respond, right? Your piece is under attack. You have to move it to save it. Here, you play a move King B1 and your opponent's like, I don't know what to do, right? So there's a lot of time being spent here. Black now plays queen to D6, finally connecting the rooks. And now Emily should play D5. The computer's also saying A3 is a good move as well, which makes sense. Right, just kind of help protect it on the A file, and you're also lending some extra support over to the knight that is now under attack. This pawn is also under attack. I don't think we're concerned at all about the H2 pawn. What we might be concerned about is knight takes F2, followed by queen takes B4. And again, it's just like here we've given black a move, right? And now black is actually creating some threats that we sort of can react to, or we can start creating our own threats. That's why D5 is so strong. Loves the move D5. Yes, Emily is winning. But will she win? It's not certain. It's not a guarantee. So maybe our opponent is a second half kind of player, you know? Who knows? But yeah, I would love to see D5. Emily could kind of get in her own head a little bit, potentially. And she could overreact. She could freak out and think, like, okay, black has all these tactics or whatever. They could win a pawn back. And even if they do win a pawn back, she'll still be up a pawn. But she's found the best move here, D5. And now we're forcing the bishop to find a new home. This was a great square. Bishop A5 is solid. The computer's really liking A3. Just locking that knight in. The knight's a huge defender for sure, guarding both these pawns. And this pawn is protected by the knight, queen, and rook, and it's guarding the knight on b4. So anytime this pawn tries to push, we can always take, regardless if it goes one or two squares, thanks to the modern day technology of en passant. Pawns have never been so powerful before. So, yeah, we're going to see a bishop move. It's going to find a new home. And then Emily needs to maybe address knight takes f2 is just kind of a free pawn that we don't want to give. So a3 is a good move for sure. That's why h3 is not so good anymore, because they could just take on f2. So we don't want to bleed our advantage, right? But yeah, I would love if Emily, like, even if we lose this pawn, this knight's a very key defender of some of these dark squares by the king. All we need is queen h6, knight g5. And if there's no knight on f6, like, that's practically lights out, game over. That's just how close Emily is to checkmating this guy. Because she wisely traded dark square bishops early. This guy, he was worried about castling kingside, right? Now he castled kingside because he could. It was his only option, and his king in the center was too at risk. So just because he's out of the center doesn't mean he's out of the frying pan. He's still very much in the crosshairs of Emily's pieces. It just takes two-piece combo to deliver checkmate. Both of these moves are one move away from threatening mate in one, which is very strong. In fact, mate in one is so strong that it ends the game. So bishop goes back to d7. Honestly, it's a little bit more passive of the options. Bishop to f5 was pointing at this king, right? But both are fine. I mean, even bishop c8 is a move, but not a good one. Bishop c8 might have been interesting to try to get on this diagonal, but this pawn is pretty well protected. Lele, thank you for the raid. Thank you. Welcome in. Shout out to Lele. This is round 4 out of 5. So, oh, I can't give shout outs because I'm not a mod. Anyways, shout out to Lele. You all can click on her username, give her a follow, check her out. She's great. She's a very strong player, and we appreciate her support of Emily. Emily's got a lovely position here. She's been playing a marvelous game to get an advantage. Emily is 2 points out of 3 games, looking to go 3 out of 4 after this one, and she will have one more game later today if you all want to tune in for that. Thank you, Senpai. Appreciate it. So it is Emily's turn. She is ahead on time, and she's looking for her next move. The computer really likes a3. Black does have a threat of taking on f2 because the queen is currently overloaded. So that is why a3 would be a good move. Now, even h3, knight takes f2, queen takes f2, even if we lose this pawn, we're still in good shape. I'm even considering h3, knight takes f2, playing queen h6. And if knight takes on d1, knight g5 is actually checkmate in 4. So the best move here, so it's saying knight c3, b takes, queen takes b4 check, which is obviously very fun. Rook moves wherever, and now it's main 2. Now, I was considering why not play... Oh, because the king's not on c1 anymore. I was going to say there's this queen check. You could sack the queen for the knight, but no, Emily played the prophylactic king to b1, making her king a bit safer. So that would be very fun if she could pull off this move. But the computer is too smart. And it says play f6, and you're guarding against this. And now both this and this are hanging if you play something like this. Now the computer is saying you could go after this back rank. Maybe we go here, and now there's 94. I mean, who knows? I don't know. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I don't think Emily will play h3 here. Oh, she did. She did play h3. Wow, and the opponent does not take on f2. So the opponent should have taken on f2, as it's technically a free pawn with the tempo. Maybe they were worried about queen h6, knight g5. Emily can still play knight h6. But after knight g5, she's not threatening mate anymore because the knight is defending the h7 square. It is way too dang. Remember, they're 1200. I think that Emily very well saw queen h6, knight g5 as a threat. Obviously, the knight was guarding h6, so that's why she wanted to get rid of it. Now, whether or not she was baiting the f2 pawn, I'm not sure. I mean, we don't know if they missed it or if they calculated it, but this is very much an idea. Emily shouldn't go for it now because the queen is very much needed to protect the knight. So maybe she plays a3, which the computer was hoping for a move prior. Now what she could do is she could drop the knight and attack this knight. She could play a move like queen to g5. Yeah, she doesn't have to drop the knight, but she could bait it. So like queen to d4 attacks the knight and defends the knight, but it doesn't really attack the knight because it's defended. She lifts the rook here, so she's kind of blocking her own queen, which isn't ideal, but it does lift the rook, and maybe she's trying to double her rooks. Maybe she's trying to protect the pawn, or maybe she's trying to swing the rook against the king. But yeah, I feel like we're very much in a new stage of the game now. So there were a lot of exciting tactics. The position is calmed down a lot. And Emily just finds herself up 2 pawns, which is nice. But it's far from over. She's enjoying a lead, but she still has to play accurately to maintain the lead. And now Black has been given many opportunities to just kind of do what they want, right? They are done reacting to Emily's threats. Like this move, for example, I'm not sure if it's necessarily making any threats. Black can contest the e-file by bringing a rook to the e-file if they wanted to, which they do. So here we see rook f to e8. And now Emily has to decide if she wants to move the rook or if she wants to support it. Rook d to e1 is very logical. That could have been her plan all along. So we'll see if she goes for that. Does winner of this game play Hikaru? That's a great question because Hikaru has been playing a lot of tournaments all throughout the US recently, trying to qualify for one of the candidate spots. However, I don't believe Hikaru is in Charlotte. And even if he is, I don't think Hikaru would be qualified to play in this tournament. So, yeah, Emily is more qualified than Hikaru. Now, you might think I'm joking, but it's true. This is an undersection, I believe. Some would say that Hikaru is overqualified, but Hikaru is not even allowed to compete at Emily's level. She would cook him, it's true. Is Hikaru not good enough for this tournament? Some would say he's too good. Zach would simply just win once given 2 pawns. Okay, Emily's played a3, which is very solid. It's a solid move. It frees her queen. Her queen has been tethered to the defense of the knight, and now we have passed the guard from the queen to a pawn. Pawn is a much more qualified piece to defend the knight. And now Emily can take with the queen, or she could take with the pawn. Now, she should take with the queen, because taking with the pawn blocks her queen. And she's not really in time to push for e4 because the knight is covering this. So she should take with the queen here. She hasn't taken back just yet. She is thinking about it. She only has a 3-minute advantage. So opponent has been catching up on time. Emily had as much as I think 15-minute advantage at one point. Or close to it. Definitely over 10 minutes. Her opponent was actually late to the board by about 7 or so minutes. Emily has taken with the pawn, and I had a feeling she would do this because in her first game that she won, it was thanks to 2 connected passed pawns. So she really values, I think, having 2 pawns in the center. Now, just because the knight controls e4 doesn't mean that she can't get the pawn to e4 at some point. She could support this square many different ways. She could bring the queen up. She could bring the knight in. And she could, well, break this pawn through, which would be very valuable. She could also bring a rook behind it. Now, the opponent could put more pressure on the e-file and make sure that this is on lock. Bishop to f5 is another such example. So yeah, Emily's 2-pawn advantage is now only reading 1.7 on the eval bar. So that means black has some compensation for the material. Now, even though black has the compensation, perhaps on paper, it doesn't matter if black cannot make the moves needed for that compensation. So compensation for material usually is in terms of activity. Basically, black has gotten through the worst of it. It was like well over +5 for white if played perfectly. So Emily kind of missed an opportunity or a few earlier, but that is okay because she's still in the driver's seat. What elo are the players? Emily is about 1,000 and her opponent is about 860. So, yeah, she can't bring her queen in anymore to h6, and it's going to take some work to do that. So that might not be what we're going for anymore. I think maybe queen up to d4 makes a lot of sense. It's a very active square. Okay, and black is helping out. So we mentioned compensation, activity, right? Black has created what's called a hook. So they've pushed a pawn on their king side, playing h5. Now, that grabs space, but it also creates weaknesses. And I mentioned a hook. So g4 could be played, and that would blunder a pawn. So I would not necessarily recommend it, but there's a lot of cases where you do want to open up lines against your king, even at the cost of a pawn. Now, I don't think it's good necessarily right now because these pieces could be very valuable and they can close the lines to the king and help aid more protection over black's king side. But it's definitely going to be an opportunity in the future, especially if these pieces are no longer guarding the square or get traded. But yeah, Emily is ahead of material, so trades are good. But losing that rook, I think, kind of slows her attack down a little bit. So I'm not exactly sure what her plan was with rook e3. And after this trade, taking with the pawn. It seems like she really wants to connect the pawns, but she has to understand she has no control over e4. I mean, black only has one thing on e4, but black has more opportunities to guard e4 than she does. So both of these minor pieces are controlling it is kind of a clear sign that, like, she needs to get a knight involved at the minimum. And also, that's another good point, is that the knight going to g5, in some lines, black had the opportunity to kick the knight away with the h-pawn push. When you push your pawns, they can never go backwards. So they can create holes in the position. The knight could become a very happy piece on g5. That helps protect over e4, which can be very valuable. It also puts pressure on f7. It keeps the square away from the king on h7. Maybe one day the queen can sneak her way in. So, yeah, black pushing a pawn in front of the king is just kind of a sign that maybe they aren't aware of a plan or how to make a plan or what to do with their pieces, right? So I feel like we've kind of seen that many times throughout the game as well. Black perhaps had something better and just kind of like didn't have a clear picture or plan of what they wanted to do. So yeah, Emily's taking the space in the center. This is a lovely queen outpost. We love the center 4 squares for our queen. Queen on d4, it's helping guard the e-pawn. If it wants to push, it's putting pressure on the knight. So now the queen is kind of tied down to defending it. Emily would love to push e4, e5. In fact, that's kind of her main threat. Another thing to think about is the queen is on the long diagonal, right? There's no dark square bishop for black. And also the queen is 2 diagonal squares away from the knight. It's going to be very difficult to kick this queen out of here. So again, we always have en passant. And this is a very difficult square for the knight to get to. So it's also a dark square. So the bishop can't kick the queen out. That being said, I think black played a good move here, addressing the main idea. So now we have to decide how we're going to try and break the pawn through. If we support with the rook, black can bring the other rook, and this could become very annoying, actually. Black has a very firm grip over e4. The computer likes the move knight to h4. So this bishop move, although it does do a good job of attacking e4 and guarding this pawn push, we have to accept that this could be a temporary thing. Knight here. Now I'm wondering if the bishop can come here. The computer likes rook f1. This is attacking the knight. And if the king steps up, this could be very dangerous. In fact, it's already calling for rook takes. And even though we give up our exchange, the idea is that the knight is defending the bishop. So at this stage, there's only one good move, and it's c5. We're kind of forcing the en passant just to trade the queens. And only now you can play king to g7. Here, I mean, you could maybe even consider sacking and pushing. But that might be too much as well. So, who knows? But yeah, here it likes rook e1. Both knights are guarding these pawns, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, obviously this is all computer lines. Emily has not played knight h4 just yet. It is an idea. She's played rook e1. This is like super logical, just following the progression. She really wants to push e4. But here, she's conceding rook e8. And then black will have full control over e4. It'll be a while before Emily could get that square under her control. So that's why it preferred knight h4, is because it just attacks the bishop. And it forces black to react. Otherwise, we're going to take and damage the pawn structure. So if you can make the bishop flinch, then maybe we do get e4. Here, we have the same hope of playing e4, but we're not attacking the bishop. We're giving black that opportunity to bring in further support. Rook e8 is a great move. And it makes a lot of sense, just combating white's rook with black's rook. How many hours from now is her next game? I'm actually not sure. But it looks like a lot of games are wrapping up here. She does have one game left later today. Usually at the end of the tournament, especially on a Sunday, the next games will start a little sooner than usual so that players can leave early. What's up, Gerber? No, this is not the Krusty Krab. Sorry. It's also not Patrick either. I can't steal Patrick's identity. I already stole the identity of JoeBruin. Does anyone smarter than me know when the next round is for Emily? How long of a break she has? Yeah. Also, like, the players are gonna start feeling even more pressure with the clocks dwindling down. Opponent has 18 minutes to Emily's 23. They have played the best move, rook to e8. So that's a very strong move here from black. And this is like something that maybe Emily didn't spot, you know, however many moves ago when she took on e3 with the pawn. Right? It's like you take with the pawn because you want to push the pawn, right? I can only presume. But you have to work it out, right? You have to be able to figure out you have that support to push. And maybe she thought she could get the support with like queen d4 and rook e1, but you also have to just remember your opponent can react to your threats. So she didn't play knight h4. Maybe she didn't see bishop to f5. But I think that it's something that you can work on with your calculation. Maybe she's still prepping like knight g5, right? Maybe. Knight g5 at least keeps the rook out of e4. It's not easy to kick that knight away. Although maybe it is easy. Queen, no, because the knight's hanging. Oh, but then our rook is hanging. Shoot. Maybe it's worth it. Because our king goes here and we're threatening this. And that. But maybe it's not worth it. Maybe they just defend. It's a tricky line. Round 5 is at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much. Zach will be commentating. He's going to bring it on home. Best for last. For sure. So, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. That is like, what, in 2 hours? So, Emily's going to have kind of a short break, maybe, between her games, depending on how much longer this one goes. Both sides roughly 20 minutes left. Could be like 40 minutes with some increment, depending on how many moves. You know, it could be like an hour. That only gives her like an hour to maybe get some food and set up for the next game. Knight g5 played. There it is. Knight g5. Wow, and this move loses actually to c5. So this could be the one big break that black has. Honestly, I was calculating knight g5 and I was worried about queen g3. So let's check out queen g3. This is a fork, right? But this blunders the knight, which looks like it blunders our rook with check. But here the computer is saying there's no way to defend. Rook f8. Now it wants knight c6. And the idea is we're just breaking through here. This is actually checkmate, by the way, which is beautiful. Queen takes on e3, knight e7, and we win that. So that would be a very beautiful tactic if Emily can figure that one out. That's if black gets... I don't know, you guys, if Emily saw this fork. If she did, she's an absolute genius, which I wouldn't put it past her. Yeah, it takes here knight c6. That's beautiful. That is really pretty. And she might be forced to find it if queen g3 is played. Queen g3 has to be extremely tempting because it's just an immediate fork. You understand you're losing the knight, but you drop the rook with check. Now, she has to see just how strong the position is for her. Attacking f7, her king is safe, rook f8, and then the knockout that I think is a little deep from this point that I don't know if she sees it yet is knight c6 follow-up. Understanding that knight to e7 is a smothered mate. So this is extremely deep. I think it's possible. Opponent doesn't go... The best move was c5. c5 is a fork of the minor pieces. If we play c5 and Emily plays en passant, the problem is now her pawn is pinned to her rook. Takes, and she just loses the rook with check. And here she's just down a rook in the endgame. So opponent missed that. I honestly am not sure if Emily would have found a I think she might have just brought the knight back to I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she would have gone for it and found it. It's like those sort of moves where you're forced to find greatness, right? Like maybe if the queen comes in with the fork, she's thinking, "Oh shoot, I just actually missed that my rook was hanging with check." But then maybe the gears start turning and she's thinking to herself, "Well, I am attacking the f7 pawn." Right? And there is really only one way to defend it with the rook. And my king is on a2 now, and maybe then I have something. Like maybe I can bring my last remaining piece into the attack. Right? And then you realize, oh my god, knight to e7 is just smothered mate. Like, I can see it being possible where maybe you miss something, you play a move that you didn't quite fully calculate, but then after you make the move on the board and you start seeing, oh shoot, like queen g3 is kind of a fork. But then maybe I can just take the, like, I don't know. Maybe the opponent saw it too. Maybe the opponent's like, oh shoot, my knight's hanging, so I can't go here because even though I get this check, I gotta defend this pawn, and then the knight comes in, I'm just cooked. That would be like what they should be calculating. And you should really assume that your opponent sees everything. That you see at least. But I mean when you're you know, in an under section, it's like obviously no one's perfect. Even in an open section, no one's perfect. So you just have to play the best of your ability, the best of what you see, and like there's always the chance that you take when you go for something, not knowing if your opponent sees it or not. But I think you play the best quality chess when you assume your opponent sees things. So otherwise you're playing hope chess. What's up, Ghost? What's up, Brad Pitt? Long time no see, dude. Hope you're doing well. We've got two legends joining. Oh, and CL Smith. Holy smokes. The legends are coming out of the woodworks. Neither of them saw c5 or queen g3. Okay, I think it's obvious they both missed c5. c5 obviously is completely winning for black, just blundering a rook, right? Or a piece, knowing that en passant is actually pinned because this pawn is pinned. It's like a cascade of pinned pawns. pin after pin. So, you know, there's actually this really funny line. Like, imagine she plays, oh, but the knight defends that too. I was gonna say, there's like this crazy sequence that people might have seen kind of go viral where you sack the queen and you get this fork, and then you fork like two other things. It's a really beautiful idea. But alas, this queen is double protected. So it doesn't quite work. We'd be losing our knight for this pawn, which is not so good. But there are some really fun ideas in the position, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, now this is kind of a problem, and this is kind of a thing, and that's hanging. So the computer gives us a miss because c5 was missed. c5 would have won material for black. So yeah, Emily's 2-pawn advantage is not looking nearly as good as it once was. She's kind of let things slip. She missed her golden opportunities earlier. You have a day off. That's nice. Okay, so she has pushed h4, and now it wants to remove the knight from the e-file. This tactic doesn't work right now anymore because the pawn is no longer pinned to the rook. Although, I mean, it kind of is, actually. Why is c5 not nearly as good anymore? D takes, queen takes, queen takes. Okay, it says we can give up the exchange here, and these pawns are very powerful. So that's winning for white. Now, if you take on g5 first, now the tactic works again because the pawns are pinned. So that is unfortunate. Yeah, and the opponent has taken. The good news that we can cling on to for now is that the opponent missed c5 the move prior. So it's very possible the opponent misses it again. However, you don't want to keep blundering the same opportunities because eventually your opponent will find it. So c5 is completely winning for black. That being said, Emily's been in much worse positions and has come back, so you can never count her out. And yeah, both players might... The problem is, like, if you think they're missing en passant, then c5 is very good because it's just a fork. So you might see en passant, but you gotta just see that the queen trade happens. This pawn, like, maybe it's tricky because the queens are covered by the pawn right now. En passant is just inherently a tricky move. So that's like one layer is, okay, do they see en passant? You have to assume yes, because otherwise the fork would just be a fork and you'd be winning. Second layer is, can you see that the queens can trade after en passant? That's the second layer. The third layer is, do you see that the pawn is pinned to the rook? So it's not necessarily that deep. 3 moves. But they've missed it both a move already. This is the second opportunity. Is it time for them to see it? Also, the time advantage is only 1 minute for Emily. It's 14 minutes to 15. Your girl also started playing chess and is inspired to watch and study more. That's awesome. Okay, rook to e4. I think this is like the more natural move. And in fact, that's what I was worried about initially when we put the rook on e1, is that after the rook comes here, all of black's pieces really control this square. So white tried again with knight g4 or g5, and that prevents the rook from coming into e4. So they're all very hyper-focused on the e4 square because of this pawn and the rooks and the knights. And so black they can't bring the rook in, so they bring the knight in, and after this trade, now the rook can come in now. So that was missed, and now the queen is forced to go to a safer square. And luckily, Emily's played a3, so the knight's defended, right? Because otherwise, this would be a skewer. So Emily's offering a queen trade here. Now, it is awkward. She is up material, so trading feels good, at least. However, black can just trade, and like the structure is not very good for Emily. The pawns are all kind of uncoordinated, and this pawn would be relatively hard to defend. But it's also not like easy to get to either, right? But the computer favors the endgame for black, actually. That being said, there's an even better move in the position, and it's just rook to g4. And essentially, black's piece activity is just improved. So, okay, black goes for something different. Now they're playing queen to g3. Computer says this is a miss, but this is actually a pretty strong move on the surface. You can see that the rook is hanging most obviously. But also the queen's just stirring up trouble, dude. It's just attacking all of our pawns. It's attacking our rook. So most obvious is to just save the rook and move it somewhere. However, we also have to keep in mind that we have a check now. So we can give a check, and maybe our queen sneaks in somehow, some way, shape, or form. The best move the computer is saying is to bring the knight back to d3 and defend the rook this way. This is not necessarily an obvious move, because your knight will then be tied to the rook, and you're dropping the e-pawn either way. So this is beginning to look a little like things are not following through for Emily. Emily had a really good position, and now it's pretty even. She's at least losing one pawn here. She will still have a pawn advantage, but it's clear that Emily didn't have like the most solid plan to convert. Zernik saying draw. I honestly don't think it'll be a draw. Draw is like what the computer would find if both sides play perfectly, but like things are getting missed left and right, both sides of the board. If he missed it before, why should he see it now? CL Smith predicted rook e4, which makes a lot of sense for sure. Just hitting the queen, getting the rook in there. Yeah, I mean, people miss things all the time, but find them later. So, okay, the queen has come back. The queen has returned. I actually am upset I didn't see this because it does defend the e-pawn and the rook. That being said, this queen is gonna gobble up some pawns here for sure. So like h4 wasn't really that good, because we're kind of just stranding our pawns. So now the question is, will the queen take? If the queen takes either of these pawns, then this pawn will fall too. So it's kind of a fair trade for Emily, although taking this pawn does put pressure back on this pawn. But that being said, you don't really want to drop that pawn because this pawn can run, potentially. Uh-oh, Emily's in the chat. You're scared. Well, this position is like pretty balanced, so you never really know. I feel like in prior games when Emily's crushing it, and then you see her in the chat, you know things are probably pretty good. In this game, because it's so even, it could really be a coin flip. So black holds on to this pawn, keeps pressure on these pawns, and decides to just push that pawn. which is kind of interesting. So Emily has a free move here. She can play like king a2, which I don't think she would do. Probably a knight move is my guess. If you go here though, you're gonna lose this pawn. If you go here, maybe. But what else is there? Maybe she moves the rook. So what do you play here, Emily? Maybe Emily blunders. Maybe she plays queen d2 actually. Would queen d2 be a good move? The computer wants rook e2. Oh, b3 is also a computer recommendation. I feel like queen d2 is kind of natural. Oh, she plays the worst move ever. Dang, Emily really spoiling it out here for us. Unless she's hustling us. Oh, she wants us. Maybe she takes this pawn and then resigns. Just kidding. You think knight c6? Oh, king over. Okay. So the computer didn't like that. Why? Because of rook c4? Oh, no. Yeah. Wait, so rook c4 and then what? Then what do you do? Then you blunder mate in one? What would you play? Queen... Surely then you play queen d2. Yeah, rook c4 played. It's okay, Emily. We'll go through it. All right, queen d2 plays. She didn't hang mate in one. She didn't blunder her rook either. So these are improvements. Oh, that's really cool, Brad. All right. All right, so let's see. Best move, it's saying queen takes g5. Would that have been would that be played? I don't know. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay, what did he play? Okay, he does take on g5. So he grabs a pawn. Yeah, Emily, I think taking on e3 was not good. But there's a lot of different ways that we could have improved. There was definitely some major tactics before he castled that were missed, unfortunately. I think allowing the king to castle really diminished your attack. So there's like a layer of punishment that we missed out on, I think. Okay, so hopefully you don't move the knight. I don't think you would. Maybe you play b3 here. What else? What else could you do? Maybe like knight d3. Emily's thinking probably anything is better than what I did. Yeah. You move the knight. Well, hopefully you didn't move it. No, you got to go to d3, Emily. Come on. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, now rook takes c2, and this blunders her queen. So, yeah, the knight was a very important defender. Putting the king on... Remember, we put the king on b1 for a reason. And this is what happens when you castle a queenside. So yeah, she blunders her queen here. This is the infamous Botez Gambit, which happens to us all. But yeah, there he goes. And poor Emily. and time pressure. And honestly, like this time like it's like 11 minutes to 9 minutes. It's basically a rapid game at this point. But yeah, that is a bit frustrating, unfortunately. So now we know the formula. Emily has to get in a very losing position to come back. She can't play a good game and then win. So now that she's down material, maybe now she has better chances here. So she does get two pieces for the queen. Rook and knight. It's not over. Although Emily being in the chat is probably a sign that it is over. So the bad thing is that she's dropping pawns like flies, and this pawn will also be passed and be pretty close to promoting. So I think Emily's got to work a little bit on some tactics for sure, some calculation. There were things that both players missed. And it's also the last day. It's Sunday morning. She's been playing already for a couple of days now. And it's hard to just be on top of your game. So, but you know, every game is a learning lesson. It's an experience. There's also a lot of like imagine queen takes pawn and then she gets the fork. Dang, they didn't do that. I tried to be optimistic for a second. Imagine, you guys. Imagine the turnaround. But no, I mean, black is just... They're too smart. They understand. They just push their H-pawn, and it's game over. It's so sad. And, yeah, our knight coming here, it's not helping our knight get back. What's up, Halvard? What's up, Dr. Skull? Good to see you. Welcome in. It's not Jover until it's Jover. This pawn push, though, is a pretty good sign, though. That's why you only play 3-day correspondence games, Adam from Canada. Yeah, I couldn't have Joe be a commentator. Well, it's not quite working out as a Halvard in this one, unfortunately. That's okay. Every game is a learning lesson. You can't win them all, but you can learn from them all. So Emily will take this experience to improve from it. We still have to review. Yeah, H2 is pretty good here. So black will be winning her rook. And it'll be a queen versus a knight and some pawns. It's okay. She's going to push e5. Oh, no, she resigned now. Okay. All right, GG, handshake. It's officially Jover. And hopefully we can bring Emily on a call before her next game. Maybe give her some good luck wishes in round 5, the ultimate round of the tournament. Did you guys set up the kings in the middle? I missed it. I guess not. But that's usually what signifies to the DGT board who wins or not. So also the clock was messed up the whole time, but that's okay. And there you have it. Result. Okay, let's see. Does Emily want to call? All right, let's call her. Hello. I cannot hear you. You are muted. All right, technical difficulties, chat. We're working on it.
Oh, I hear you now. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back. Sorry about that, but you played a great opening. You were crushing this guy, and you just missed a
I
couple
know.
tactics, and that's okay because tactics are easy and fun to work on. And
Yeah.
I think that you just got to have that like killer instinct, right, to punish
Ugh,
these
I
opportunities.
know. Like my whole goal of the game was to keep him from castling, and then I just like could not find like after the whatever sequence that was of like rookie one and then bishop takes and then like exchanging the knights. Like I just could not see anything. Like I was thinking about sacrificing stuff and I was just like, I just don't see like I can't think that far ahead to see if this works. So I was like, I mean, I'm up 2 pawns. Hopefully we can just get into a winning endgame. And then I didn't know what I was doing after that. So as you
That's
could tell.
there were two ways you could have really punished after you played rook he1 check and he blocks the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
You just
Mm-hmm.
need to take his knight with either your queen or your knight. You took his pawn with your bishop, and then you took the
Mm-hmm.
knight. The problem is now he castles. So
Right.
if you take the knight immediately, first, if you take with the queen, he can't castle because your queen is governing f8. And if you take with
Mm-hmm.
a knight, he has to take your bishop because then you're just up a piece. And then you can push d5, and his king still isn't
Mm.
castled, and you're gonna win his bishop.
Uh, yeah, that was my original plan. I don't know why I didn't end up doing that. Like when I originally played rookie one, that was what I had planned on doing. And then I just like, I don't know. I don't even remember why I decided that what I did was better. It wasn't,
Well, yeah, what
obviously.
you did, it wins you a pawn, but he
Hmm.
castles, and now you still have to fight this game out. And there was still a lot
Yeah,
of
with like 20
opportunities.
minutes left, which I mean,
That's
as
more
we
than
know,
enough
I don't do
time.
well.
Come on, no, that's plenty of
Uh,
time. You have the
there were
increment,
so many
and
pieces left.
no, no,
No,
no.
and like
I
it was
think
complex. Like, I
you just
mean,
got
I
in
don't
your own
know.
head, I think.
I
But
think so too, but
okay,
yeah,
yeah, what was your rookie 3 idea?
rook e3.
When
Oh,
you
I mean,
looked
I was trying to double up the rooks and then bring it down to like rook
but
e7, but then he just.
you didn't double the rooks though is the problem. Rookie 3 and
Oh
he
yeah, well,
contests.
okay,
Yeah, okay.
that was my plan, and then I like think I was seeing ghosts because I liked that the rook and queen were like basically pinning my pawn to his queen so that he didn't have that whatever. I don't know, to be honest, but I
Yeah,
talked myself out of it.
you should
That was what I, yeah, that was my initial plan, and then
yeah, you should
yeah,
follow up with doubling your rooks, which would be good. And
hmm
then when he takes your
yeah.
rook, you have to take with the queen there. You can't take with the pawn.
I know. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like,
Well, you wanted to
that was
push
again.
e4.
Yeah,
You wanted to get your two
I
pawns together, but it just would never
yeah,
happen.
lots of pawn issues. That and then obviously like, what was that? H4 defending the knight. Stupid. As soon as I played that, I was like, I don't know why I did that. Like that was like the last idea that I had, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, that works. Let's just do that. And then as soon as I played it, I was like, that's stupid. But it was the same thing with yeah, F takes E, whatever that was. So yeah. But it's okay. Lots to learn from,
It's
for
okay.
sure.
It's okay. There was a really exciting moment when you played knight to g5. I don't know if
Hmm.
you're able to remember. He played the knight into e4 to try to like attack your
Yeah,
knight.
yeah.
Did
There
you
was a,
calculate at all? He had this move queen to g3, which was forking your knight and your rook.
oh, nope. Then nope.
Well, that would have actually not worked out in his favor. You could have given up your rook with check because you would have had this really strong mating attack. You take his knight, you're
Mm,
attacking f7, and then you bring your
dang.
knight into c6. But okay, the problem is uh his fork, as we mentioned, wouldn't work because you have this like mating attack. But there was a blunder. After you play knight to g5, he has a winning move. He can just play c5, forking your queen and your knight. And you don't have en passant there because he just takes your queen and your e pawn is pinned to your rook. Your rook is hanging on the e file. But you both missed it.
What?
It's
Oh my
okay.
gosh. I mean, I saw he had that move, and the whole time I thought that like
You just play en
it would be fine with
passant.
en passant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh
problem is your
no.
rook is pinned. So yeah, it's I think like you had a lot of like good ideas, but they just weren't like thought through entirely. Like for example, when you play rook e3, you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna double my rooks, right? You're gonna bring the other rook to
Hmm.
e1, but you didn't do
Yeah.
that. And then you just
Yeah.
take with the pawn thinking, okay, I'm gonna play e4 and e5, and that looks really strong,
Hmm.
but you don't have control over e4. And every time you try
Yeah.
to control e4, your opponent has an extra piece. And the funny thing is
Yeah.
that you then play rook e1 again when you could have just doubled the rooks with rook e1 to start with.
Uh,
So you're kind of like blocking your pieces with your
yeah.
pawn on e3. Um,
Hmm.
but like the major thing was like earlier, just you had a couple of different ways to win when he played this like b5 move attacking your bishop.
Hmm.
You just
Oh
missed.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you take on
Yeah. That was
b5 and you only got a pawn out of it. So you had
yeah.
something definitely stronger there. So I think it's worth the
Yeah.
extra time to like figure that out if you have these like senses that he's blundered and you have like a tactic.
Hmm.
You got to go through these options, right? It's like, okay, my bishop's hanging, his knight's hanging, my knight's hanging. Let's look at all the different ways I can capture his knight. Let's look at all the ways that I can like take advantage of his king on the e file. Like he's blocked with the bishop, so if you take his knight with your knight, then your d pawn is pushed or free to push and win a piece that way. Or if you take with the queen, then he still can't castle, right? And then you should be confident you should still have like tactics, right, that you can fight for.
Yeah.
So that was like your main opportunity that was missed.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
I knew there was something there, but the calculation just isn't there. So definitely, like Tony's been saying, I need to work on my calculation. I'm like, yeah, calculation.
it's I mean
But
I
obviously,
know
it's yeah, important. So
yeah, they have a lot of I guess opinions on like how important tactics are. Like what chess is like 99% tactics or something. I don't know. Who
yeah,
knows? But
that's what they say. That's what they say. But I don't know.
it's
I mean, I
okay.
guess yes.
I think like if you're like below 2000 elo, it's like every area or every aspect of your game could use work, right? Like
Yeah, right. Hmm.
calculation is obviously a very big part of it all, and obviously very helpful. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to put together a perfect game. You played the opening like super well, and I think like if you keep getting positions like that, you're just gonna be crushing people. So
If I can figure out how to convert them, yes.
yeah, I think it's better to have played like this than to like be completely losing and then swindle like a come from
Like my
behind like.
first two games, yeah, I agree. I agree. Uh,
So even though you don't get the result that you want, I think that your play is still very good, right? And
mhm.
you have a lot to look forward to and a lot to learn from, which is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one more game. Hopefully, we can play better.
Yeah, I mean, we can always play better, all of
It
us.
can't, of course, it can't get much worse. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because it
It
can.
could
So,
very well, yeah. Like, I mean, imagine how you'd feel if you'd lost like one of your first two games, right? You just lose like the whole way through, basically.
that's true. At least, we got a couple wins in. So, whatever happens,
I think there's
we,
always a positive note. There's always a bright side, even if you do get completely smoked. Like you could still learn from it, and it's all about your attitude. You know, if you have a positive mentality, like there's never anything that could bring you down, and there's always something to look forward to. And you have another game. I don't want to take too much of your time because it'll be starting quite soon, actually. I think in an hour.
Yeah.
So I'll let you
Mm.
get some rest, maybe get some food, re-energize, reset, and we'll all be tuning in, wishing you the best of luck in your last game.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Thanks, chat. I'll see you guys in an hour if you feel so inclined. If you still have interest in watching the rest of the
Of
tournament.
course, people will watch you and support you regardless. Also, shout out to Chess Sharks in the chat saying Tony's usually right.
Oh gosh. Oh no. I'm gonna get in trouble for that
Uh,
game. No, but all right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks again, Joe. Thanks, chat. I'll see you guys shortly. Oh, where are you sending the raid somewhere so I can
I
follow?
personally will be sending a raid, and Zach is
Just
asking.
okay, great. If Zach's there, just have him send them wherever you are sending yours.
Well, sounds good. I think I might raid maybe. I see a lot of people on. There's Phoebe and there's Rachel.
Oh yeah,
Um,
both great options. You can choose. Rachel did commentate for
yeah, I
us
know. Rachel
yesterday, so
commentated, so let's raid Rachel.
okay. All right. Well, thank you. Let me. I'll check in. Zach, if you can do that, that'd be awesome. If not, I can also do it.
Yeah, you also have Senpai, so there's no shortage of mods right
Oh,
now.
good. Oh, great. Okay, I trust. You guys are in good hands then. All
All right, and we'll see
right.
you
Well,
in an
thank you.
hour. Best of luck.
Okay, sounds good.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, chat. That was the one and only lovely Emily Plays Chess. She didn't get the win just now, but she will have another game in 1 hour. So we'll see you all back very soon. Get some snacks, maybe go for a walk, get some rest, and we'll see you soon. Or just keep Rachel's stream on. Maybe Rachel will raid Emily back when she's done. We'll see. But yeah, take care, everyone. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.